Welcome to the Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Keren. Settle in. We're about to make you feel really good. Welcome back to the Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Keren. Today, I have the joy of speaking with another masterful teacher in our Coaching Masters series, someone whose work sits right at the intersection of integrity, leadership, and belonging, Dov Baron. If you're a masterful coach or a person who loves masterful coaching, I want you to hit that subscribe button. But more importantly, I want you to settle right in. Dov Baron is a world-renowned leadership mentor and the host of Leadership and Loyalty podcast, a podcast on which I have had the great privilege of being a guest. He's written several influential books on culture and trust, including my favorite, Fiercely Loyal, which is one of the many of his books that I possess here, and the upcoming Creating Cultures of Belonging. His personal story of loss, of reinvention, and resilience is as compelling as his research on leadership. Dov teaches integrity, truth-telling, and what I call real, not gilded, leadership. In this conversation, I hope he's going to give us a look at how he became the teacher that he is, how he's built his incredibly successful executive coaching enterprise, and we'll also talk about trust, belonging, and personal integrity, and how to build authority that lasts. I hope that we dig into one of his core ideas, which is that leaders must move beyond tolerated presence to trusted belonging if they want themselves and their teams to thrive. You know, there's a quote that I love by She said, "A leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be." And as a devotee of Dov's work and his newsletter and his epic podcast, I think that's exactly what you're about to experience here. Welcome to the show, Dov.
Thank you so much. I'm honored and deeply grateful to be here. I'm looking forward to serving you, serving the audience, and having some great fun together.
Me too. I'm dying for everyone to already begin with your emotional source code, as you like to call it with your guests. You've built a whirlwind of work and trust and leadership teaching, but there is a you before the work, and I think it's a hell of a story. Can we start with sharing how you personally came first to enlightenment and then to this work? And by the way, I don't use the term enlightenment lightly.
No, I always laugh when somebody says that because it's like it's a destination, and it's not a destination. No. You know this. You'll never get there. There is no such thing as enlightenment. There are moments that awaken us.
Yeah.
And there are moments that we have that are opportunities to awaken that if you're a bit thick like me, you ignore. So one of my moments of awakening was in June 1990. I was a free climber. I was an adrenaline junkie, which meant I did all kinds of stupid shit that people shouldn't do because I loved adrenaline. And on a particular day in June, I was free climbing up by Whistler, where the Winter Olympics were held in 2010, free climbing at about 120 feet, which is about 12 stories up. And I fell, no ropes, and landed on the rocks below and got smashed to pieces. And that was my fourth fall, not my first. Because as I said, slow learner. And even then, when people would say to me, "How are you doing?" My jaw was wide closed, my whole face was wired, and I'd say, "I'm great, I'm coming back." I mean, I wasn't great. I was deeply, darkly depressed, but my identity was so heavily embedded in this idea that I was tough. I'd been a boxer, I'd been a martial artist, I'd been a bodybuilder, I'd built businesses in different countries, I was born in poverty. So it's like, I'm the tough guy. And it took probably another 9 months after that, a gestation period, for me to realize, no, I'm not all right. I'm devastated, I'm destroyed. Who I was dead. And that was the awakening that really got me there. I'd had many before that, not just falls, but awakenings that should have brought me to that. But it's a constant journey from there. It's not like, oh, that happened and then, okay, now I'm Om. No. Every day I'm confronted with balancing out my own ego and paying attention, because we all got an ego, to where does my heart and my soul want to go? And how do I go there in the face of the pull of my ego, because we all have an ego.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. The ego never dies, but we do rise. I didn't mean that for that to rhyme. The idea of enlightenment for me is just moments of coming to consciousness in a sequence, and hopefully at the end of this, you get to die and fully transform your energy. That coming to consciousness that you describe in a moment where you finally realize through that hospitalization and really a terrible fall, a very, very big. I think after that fall, you had reconstructive surgery, right? Like a full on
I think
experience
I
of
had 11
recovery.
or 12
Wow.
reconstructive surgeries and 5 near-death experiences.
So just a completely brutal experience. And you finally are starting to contend with the truth, which is a coming to consciousness, right? Is one of those big pings that starts to possibly give you a new direction.
Yeah, one of the things I want people to grasp about this is, and I know you will understand it, Karen, because we've talked about it before, but I think that people resist it, and you really got to get this. Enlightenment is a destructive process. Let me say that again. Enlightenment is a destructive process. I know you watch the movies and you've read the books and you think it's all light coming from the sky and there's, oh, that's not what happens.
Yeah.
Enlightenment is a destructive process because enlightenment is about you rising. And what does that mean? Well, think about the metaphor. A phoenix rises from the fire. You don't get the phoenix without the fire, and the fire burns shit down. You've got to be willing to burn down what you had in order to rise up to become who you're supposed to be on this planet in order to serve your soul. And the reason that people don't get, quote, enlightenment is because they're not willing to let things burn. They go, well, can I burn this little package over here? I'll burn my marriage. Is that okay? Yeah, but what about your business? Well, no, I'm not going to burn that. Well, I'll burn my business, but not my marriage. Well, hold on a minute. You got to be willing to burn it all. It doesn't mean it all will burn, but it's the willingness to let it. And that comes in the question of, am I willing to question what I call the truth?
Oh gosh, you are so expert at saying this. I just love that you said that for our audience. I hope everyone received that. So let's talk a little bit about the rise from the ashes. Where'd you go next?
Into another depression. So I'd been hiding the depression. Then I had this moment where I fully realized I had died and I had to live with that. And I went into this dark, deep spiral. And I can remember lying on the floor weeping and realizing there were 3 paths in front of me. There was the path to continue on what I've been doing, which was, I'm great, I'm coming back. Well, I knew I wasn't great and I wasn't coming back and I couldn't keep that act up much longer. The second path was the most seductive. The second path was, I now have a brilliant story about why I didn't succeed. And I could claim this victim story and I can milk that for the rest of my life. And that was so seductive because it meant I didn't have to do anything. And then the third path was the most difficult one, which is particularly for me, because at this age, I'm 32. I began my work as in going to therapy at 19. I began my spiritual work at 7. So I've got a long history already in my pocket here. And having to look at that moment and say, I have to admit everything I've learned means nothing. And that I have to go in search of my soul's purpose. And I have all these accolades of having traveled and studied with spiritual masters around the world, and I'd been a Jungian psychologist, and I'd studied all these different things. I should be all that, and being willing to say, you know what, none of that counts anymore. That was so difficult.
Yeah.
And that was another gestation period. That was another 9 months of journaling for hours and hours a day, going to therapy, doing that work to say, I can't do this anymore. And a friend of mine said to me, came to me, he says, this was like a month after that breakdown. And he said to me, when are you going to get back out there again? When are you going to? And remember, this is after the breakdown, not the fall, but the actual breakdown. And I said, I'm not. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, I'm not getting on stages anymore. I'm not coaching anymore. I'm not doing any of that. And he's like, come on, you got to do it. And I'm like, no. And about a year and a half after that, he came to one of my events and I was speaking. And at the end, he's waiting for me and he comes up to me and goes, I thought you weren't doing it anymore. I go, I'm not. He goes, I just watched you speak on stage and tell people that you could work with them privately. I go, no. He goes, I just saw you. Are you bullshitting? I go, no. And he goes, I don't know. What are you talking about? I said, I'm not doing the same thing. He goes, but you are. I said, no, it's not what I do. It's where I'm doing it from.
Yeah.
I used to get on stage because secretly I was doing it for the applause.
Yeah.
Secretly, I was doing it for the personal validation. And secretly, I was doing it because I had a hero complex that I didn't even recognize.
Yeah.
And I stopped doing all that so I could stand on a stage and I could deliver, and you can hate me. And you can work with me or not work with me. And that's fine, because now I have to qualify you. That's a very different process. Looks the same, standing on a stage, speaking, coming from a very different place.
What a perfect description of the not only surrender process, but also of the stages that we go through, hopefully, by the way, in teaching. I'm beginning to think, Dov, that you might not be very thick, as you say. There are a couple
We'll
of things
debate that later.
I mean, the first thing I want to say is that it mimics perfectly, and I've never really thought about it that way, but in my own kind of demise, as I shared with you on your podcast, I remember a moment where I was suicidal and actually started to think, when I started to gain a little more clarity, that there were two paths before me. One was the death of the performance. It was the death of this persona that had clearly just led me astray. And the other was the ability to share a new story, even though I had very little clarity about that. It just seemed kind of interesting. But I never considered that that third path was also available to me, which was to finally get to blame everything else for my condition and stay a victim for the remainder of my life and just cruise. And then, like you, luckily, whether I contemplated the same paths or not, I did the same thing. I kind of hibernated for a long time and did absolutely nothing. And I think that what emerged in its stead, it's still a work in progress, but has been much more surrendered and much less of the applause junkie and the status seeking junkie that came before.
I think that's so well put, because it's most people, and they don't like it when I say this, have chosen that path of victim. Mm-hmm. They choose that path because it is seductive. It's not my fault. This shit just happened to me. I just was born in a shitty situation. My dad did this. My mom did that. I got fired. It wasn't my fault. My boss was an asshole. It's so easy to do all those things. And I think that oftentimes where coaches go wrong, and you and I have had conversations about therapists and coaches before, and people ask me, oh, can you recommend a coach? No. Can you recommend a therapist? No. Why? If you haven't done your work, I'm not going to recommend you. Yeah. I will not recommend you if you've not eaten your own pudding. If you're not swallowing the medicine, why would I do that? And oftentimes, that's another path, which is, I get to pretend I'm healed by healing others. That was my gig before I fell. And remember, I'd been in therapy since 19. So I had it down. I knew how to do that gig very, very well, but I still wasn't fully living it. I'd done it, and I could have argued, well, I did this training and I did that training. I did the inner child work. I did blah, 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 blah. So what? When people say to me, well, I've done 10 years of therapy, my response is, so? And they go,
where has it gotten you, by the way? Yes, yeah, exactly.
So what have you done with it?
Yeah.
Where has it taken you to the darkness of your soul? Because if you don't integrate the shadow, the part of yourself that you pushed away, you'll never find the magnificence of who you are. The magnificence of who you are is only accessible via the shadow. And so you want to put on show all the shiny bits. But the way you can serve greatest is by putting on show the shitty bits and showing, I'm not there anymore. I'm not telling you I'm not there anymore. Let me show you the arc.
Yeah.
Let me show you that, because I'm not better than you. That's what's so important. And as coaches and therapists, we like to stand on this box and talk about how wonderful we are. I'm a mess.
Yeah.
every day. And every day I'm reorganizing that mess to be real and pure and clean as much as I can. So that I can be the kind of husband I want to be. So I can be the kind of father or grandfather that I want to be. So I can be the kind of person in service and say, you know what? I'm struggling with that myself today. And they go,
Yeah.
really? I didn't think you would. Yeah. You know why? I'm human. One time, my wife, when we'd been dating about 5 months, and she came to my place, and I was in a bit of a low, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, could you just hold me?" And she said, "Yeah, sure," like totally shocked. So she holds me for about 15 minutes, and she says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm good now." She goes, "What happened?" I said, "Oh, it was shit with my father. My father's dead now, but he was not a good person." And I said, he just did his tricks and it really sort of brought me down. And she goes, I said, "Are you okay though, with holding me?" And she goes, "Yeah, it was kind of a shock." And I said, "Why?" She goes, "Well, I just think of you as a rock." And I
Mm.
lost my shit. I said, "Don't ever fucking insult me that way again." And she goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "I'm a human.
Yeah.
Rocks don't have feelings. I've got a full body of emotion." And from that moment on, that was the deepening of the relationship because you could hold the human.
Yeah.
And in my humanity, I have frailty and enormous strength. Yes, I've got great strength. And yes, I've got great power. But I've also got fragility. And I can hold that little boy who's inside of me who needed his dad to tell him he loved him. And he was never going to get that.
Mm.
That little boy didn't go away. He's still inside of me.
Mhm.
He still needs me to hold him and say, I'll walk you out into the light.
Yeah.
This is what we have to do for ourselves, not just for each other. We must do it for ourselves first.
We have to show ourselves that fierce self-compassion. That brings tears to my eyes. And I love you, first of all. I hope you know that. I
Thank you.
also want to underline a couple of things that you said that are really, really powerful for all the teachers listening in particular. The first is we do not stop being human. This is a theme that's recurred. I love telling people that I continue to be, sadly, a bit of a politics junkie. I am human. It just is what it is. I'm doing my best, but my best is still human, and I'm okay with that. That's the best way to model anything, really. The second thing that I really love that you brought up, Dov, is, as Hippocrates once said, if you're going to heal someone, ask them if they're willing to give up the thing that made them sick. You, I'm sure, have heard that many times.
Gandhi
Th-
said the same thing.
Well, he was quoting Hippocrates.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting thing, and it ties in with this other big Stoic idea that I love, which is Epictetus's idea that all losers have the same thing in common. They're constantly blaming the circumstances. They stop stopping, which is why they end up with poor results. You must, whenever confronted with anyone, yourself, another teacher, or anyone seeking teaching, ask them first, are you really sure that you want to go there? And the reason I love underlining this today is because this week the universe sent me a special gift. A big celebrity that I've been following my entire life. I mean, I have worshiped, was on a very lengthy podcast. And you know what? You know how some people they've been coached within an inch of their life so they speak the language? And yet I sat there listening and thinking, I feel like something's still kind of wrong. And not just because the marriage isn't there and other results are not visible, but it just didn't seem to be landing. Don't kid yourself. Do the real work and then fully move yourself into a place of real vulnerability. And real vulnerability is flawed. It's flawed knowledge, it's flawed in practice, it's just human, but it's still devoted.
Karen, you just brought up something that I think is profoundly important. And it's a way for us to get off our own pedestals.
Yeah.
And that is this: the reason you put yourself on a pedestal, not consciously. So I'm not saying you're an egomaniac, whoever you are, including me. It's not necessarily because you're an egomaniac, but it's because you've been socially conditioned to put people on pedestals. And so
Mm.
the only way to feel better is to raise yourself up above others. And when you meet your heroes and you realize they're humans, and when you can pay attention, because a lot of people listening to that podcast you talked about would go, "Oh my God, this person's wonderful," right? But when you have looked within, when you have glanced into the shadow, when you have confronted your own demons, you see things other people don't see.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you remove them from the pedestal. Now that's painful
Yeah.
to do that, but it also means you removed yourself from the pedestal. And I think that that's profound. And here's the thing, when you start looking at the world that way, you don't see the world the same as anybody else. I was talking to a very, very good friend of mine recently who's going through some very difficult times. And he lives in California. I'd been to visit him, and him and I have been friends for about 10 years via Zoom. Like, so we meet every couple of weeks, and we're very good friends. Like, he's a brother. But I'd not met his family. And I was in California. I went and met him and his family, and I came back, and my wife said, what was his wife like? And I said, she was very nice, and she hates me. And my wife said, what do you mean? I said, oh, she was very nice. She was very accommodating, very pleasant. She hates me. And I said, why? She said, because I can see her. Her husband can't see her, and I can see her. And what's more is, because I can see her, she knows I can see her. So she hated me. And she goes, how did you feel about her? I said, I just knew who she was.
Yeah.
I could see her bravado. I didn't like her or dislike her. I could just see who she is. And it's that willingness to see yourself that allows you to see others.
Yeah.
It's not looking down at them. No. It's just like, so when you and I know this, we both do this. When a client wants to come on, we're asking that question. What are you willing to give up? Like, so you say you want this, but do you? Because to have something means you must give up something.
Yes.
You don't get to put it on top. You don't go, oh, I want the crown. Well, could you put it on this pile of turds for me?
Exactly.
No.
And that it's important to say pile of turds. I was going to say, you're going to put it on a bedrock of lies. What I really love that you're bringing up is the bullshit meter that kind of is developed after a while, which makes us, I think, sometimes a little bit less charming to others, but it's very, very essential to leadership coaching in particular, because the ability to see incisively what people are and to call them out is the skill set that's really necessary here. I too have to tell you, have met people's spouses and felt, ooh, they're not going to want to hang out with me too much because I can tell they're gay, or because I can tell they're in debt up to their eyeballs, or because I know that bravado is phony baloney. And this is something that I have to tell you, I had to come to terms with, just like the heartbreak I experienced as watching a very big hero, and sort of having these moments of thinking, oy, oy, oy. Every single time that happens, I just think a little bit, just a little, ugh. But that's the part that I'm working on to become a better teacher. It's to see them as objectively as you do.
But it's hard.
I just see the way they are. I just see the way they are. They are the way they are. And my job is to see that. It is.
It's hard because we want to have these heroes.
Yeah.
We want to look at these people and say, wow. Now, I do have people I can look at and go, who are fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Right. But I also see their humanity. Right. I see their humanity. As I said, I don't have a lot of patience for coaches. You and I had a conversation before you were ever on my show, and I said, I don't have coaches on my show. The Dov Baron show does not have coaches, right? And you and I talked, and I went, yes, you could definitely come on. And the reason is because you're not a coach.
Yeah.
That's the title of what you do, but it's not how you operate. It's a very different operating system of how you're coming at serving people. And that's the key. And most people in the coaching world don't understand that. They went through a formula, they learned the formula, they do the formula. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's not got depth. And your willingness to go to your own soul, to your own heart, to your own vulnerability. And by that, let me qualify that too, because a lot of coaches say, oh, you know what? Here's my vulnerability story. It's a fucking story.
It is.
It's a story. If you're regurgitating the story and it doesn't have any meaning for you, it's just rehearsed.
It's a fucking story. Yeah. You and I talked about this. I remember I was talking about this one coach who never shuts the fuck up about the fact that he was in a car accident when he was 19. And I'm like, you're 50. Like, seriously, homie, there's no way you even remember what happened that day. Certainly not unless you're regurgitating trauma in a vivid or in a sense that's actually useful to you today. I love that. And I love that we connect over this absolute obsession with integrity. How have these philosophies and your life experiences led you to specifically leadership and the meta themes of integrity and belonging?
Well, as you know, my background is quite different. I am a polymath. So just to sort of give people context for that, I started out studying metaphysical studies of religious philosophy, Kabbalah, Vedanta, Hindu philosophy, Buddhism, the Tao, Gnostic and Coptic Christianity. Got really kind of sick of people who could tell me which way my chakra was spinning but couldn't get their shit together. So I started studying psychology. I became a Jungian therapist, loved Jungian therapy, became a Jungian therapist, and was like, I'm sick of people sitting there lying on a couch telling me their shit and not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Met a Greek millionaire, Tim, who I got to become friends with, who introduced me to a bunch of his friends. And I started hanging out with very wealthy, very successful people, including some famous Australian actors and stuff, and realized a lot of them were kind of soulless. And so now I'd gone from the spiritual to the psychological to the very highly successful, and was like, oh, these people haven't, what's missing? How do you bring this together? That I stumbled into quantum physics in 1983 and neuroscience, which was in its very early days back then, and started putting all that together and started developing my thesis for personal emotional resonance fields through the context of the emotional source code. Right? Again, I can explain the emotional source code in a moment, but that was then going back to these leaders, these people who are very successful, and saying, what's driving you? And they tell me, oh, this is my mission. And I'm like, nope, that's not driving you. And they go, what do you mean? It is. That's my mission. And I go, no, that's your mission. You manufactured that. That's what you think you should have. That's no different than the shit Enron had on the wall. It didn't mean a damn thing. It's the right thing to say, but where's your soul in it? And they go, I don't know. I don't understand that. And then working with these people to say, here's how you bring your soul to work in a way that has integrity and challenges you at every possible term to serve. How can you serve something beyond yourself and still be extremely successful? So do good while being good, right? Do well for yourself while doing good in the world. How can you do that? And that became like it started to get viral with people who were in that space who were like, I want to understand this. So they became actors and athletes and entertainers and political people now as well for me, as well as the CEOs and those kinds of people. And all my work is by, as you know, is by referral. But like you, everybody has to qualify. Oh no, I'm sorry. They go, oh, well, can I tell you a quick story of that?
Yeah.
So
wait, I just want to be clear on the timeline because I've read all your books. I think pretty much all your books. Is this when the "don't read this, your ego won't like it," and "don't read this unless you want more money" comes about?
That was the early stages of that. Yes.
Yeah. So this is when all the quantum stuff starts to really move into kind of this ego destruction.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's teach people from a higher level place.
Yeah. So there's this.
I'm going to link all of Dov's book in the show notes.
That's very kind. So I have this client. He's very good to me. He recommends a lot of people to me. And I work with very few people in my city of Vancouver where I live. But there are some.
Yeah.
And so this guy says he'd recommended this guy. So we have this guy's paid for an hour, which is the initial conversation to see if we can work together. And at about 40 minutes, I say to this guy, we're done. And he goes, I paid for an hour. It's only been about 40 minutes. And I said, yeah, I know, but there's no point in going any further. And he goes, why? I said, we're done. Yeah. And he goes, okay, so should I write you a check now or whatever it is? Back in the days of writing checks. And I said, no, there's no need. And he goes, oh, well, why? I said, you can't afford me. He goes, do you know how much money I have? I said, yeah, I do. And he goes, are you sure? I said, if you're not a billionaire, you're pretty damn close. And he goes, yeah, so why do you think I can't afford you? I said, because you know the price of everything and the value of nothing. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, I'm not a psychic, but let me tell you about you. And he goes, okay. I said, if you don't drive a Maybach, you drive the top of the line Mercedes. And he goes, okay. I said, you live in West Vancouver, which is the most expensive property in Canada. You live in West Vancouver. I said, when you drive into your house, the house is on the mountain, but you actually have to drive down into the house. And he's like, okay. I said, if you go into your living room, it looks like from a showroom. It's beautiful. I said, but you don't go there. You and your family, probably your in-laws or your mother's family, live underneath in the basement part of the house. Still have a beautiful view, but your furniture's not new down there. It's old, maybe even secondhand. And he just looks at me and goes, how did this person who recommended him, did he tell you that? And I said, no. He goes, how do you know all that? I go, because you know the price of everything and the value of nothing. Everything for you is about how your show. I said, and the reason you can't work with me is because I won't give you bragging rights about working with me. Because people who work with me don't get bragging rights. You have to do the work, and you can't do it. You're too attached.
Yeah.
And people always say to me, so did then he change his mind? And I said, oh, hell no. He went away and badmouthed me to the person who'd recommended him. And that's okay.
Because that was where his consciousness was. We always run that enormous risk, but I truly give you enormous kudos for doing that. I know how hard it is to say anything like that. Just the other day, I said to a client that I've known for a very long time, you are lying, which is, I don't think, a sentence that people enjoy hearing.
No.
But it's so important to say you are lying rather than sit there and continue to indulge the delusion. And we are not agents of continuing the delusion.
One of my clients, she's my longest regular client. So I have seen her every week. She has the same spot every week on a Tuesday. She's had that same spot for 11 years, right? So unless I'm out of the country or something, she always has that time. And I say to her, if you went to her and said, what was the question or the sentence that Dov said to you that made you begin the work? And the question was this: what's the lie, Anne? And she went, what lie? And I go, and I never sort of explained it. I just kept saying, what's the lie, Anne? And she goes, that was the question that changed everything, because I had to keep questioning. She goes, it played in my brain 24/7 to realize that she was living a lie. It wasn't a lie, it was the lie.
Absolutely. I like to play a game with my clients, Dov. You'll find this very amusing, called Where's the Poop? And that's
Oh,
because
you're so much nicer than me.
that's because if anywhere, I live with lots of animals. If there's anywhere poop within your vicinity, it will infect the entire room. And that's how I think of lies. Anywhere you even fib, it will start to darken everything. And so as they speak, I say, where's the poop? Where's the poop? And as we get closer and closer to the poop, we can actually have a chance of removing it. And finally, going a little bit more floral with our scents. It's definitely worth, I think, an attempt for everybody out there listening. What's the lie? Where's the poop? Try it today.
And we tell ourselves, though, that this lie doesn't matter.
Oh,
this is
please.
The key. Right? So the analogy I give
Yeah.
is you live in the woods and you have this beautiful log cabin that you built in the woods and you collect rainwater and it's magnificent. And it's such a beautiful place to live and you love living there and you've got nature all around you. And suddenly a raccoon finds its way into your water barrel and drops a turd in your water barrel. This is the place you need to drink from. And you go and you happen to notice and you pull out in that beautiful barrel of clean water with one turd in it. It's just one turd. And you go, it's just one turd.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how you live your life with one lie. It's
Exactly.
just one turd that will poison everything.
Oh, so
can't afford
beautifully
the
and
turd.
disgustingly said. I just love that story. I want to tell you that this is also a perfect segue because, as you know, I'm a devotee. I've said this twice already of your newsletter. And one of the concepts you've started to dive into is, of course, the turds of leadership that are infecting teams. And for leaders who suspect that their teams are starting to not only survive their presence, for example, they're beginning to understand that their teams are absorbing their exhaustion, as you said in a very recent newsletter, and that there may be their own turds infecting the water. How can they start rewriting that unspoken emotional contract and righting the ship?
So the first thing is, may I go into the emotional source code?
Of course.
Right. So the first thing is you can't do it blindly. So you need to understand your emotional source code. And I'll give you the overview of it. And for if you're a coach listening to this, don't think that it means you understand it. It's got great depth to it, but it's a way for you to grasp it. So there are 5 levels to your emotional source code. The first level is the foundation, and the foundation is the milieu. It's the environment you were born into. You have no control over it. So your dad's an alcoholic, your mum's a whatever, you're poor, you're rich, whatever it is. That's just the environment.
Yeah.
And then the next level is called the anatomy of meaning. And the anatomy of meaning is the meaning you give not only the environment, but the circumstances of the environment. And it's the reason that you and your twin seem very different, because you've adopted different meanings for a certain thing, right? And that's just the way it is. And so that meaning you give is for your survival. Now recognize that's vitally important. You decided the meaning in order to survive. You went, how do I survive this lunatic asylum called my childhood? And I have to give this meaning. So that look from mom means this. That look from dad means that. That thing being over here means this. You give it meaning. Yeah. Out of that meaning of survival, you form an identity. And out of that identity, you have to manufacture a set of beliefs and values to hold the identity in place. And that manufactures behavior. People want to change behavior. They can't change the behavior. They go, why won't the behavior change? Because you've not dealt with the values and beliefs you have in place.
Exactly. You're skipping levels. You're skipping levels. Yes.
So, okay, well, I'll deal with the values and the beliefs. Great. But are you willing to confront the identity?
Yeah.
No. That's the part that's most stuck.
Yeah.
Why is it most stuck? Because I have this to survive. So people put things on top of the identity. Mm-hmm. But under stress, we regress and we go right back into the anatomy of meaning, and the old identity shows up. So that's what happens. So when you start having a realization that you are infecting your own environment as a leader, if you're not willing to look at the identity you have in place, the structure you've put there, and the survival mechanisms you built into the anatomy of meaning, you're going to keep repeating the cycle.
Yeah.
So you give things meaning that is subjective meaning. It's not truth, but you call it the truth. So I say to you, what does it mean when it rains? Just as a simple thing. And you go, it means depression. It means sadness. Some people it does. For some people it means, oh my goodness, this is great. The flowers are going to grow. There's all kinds of meaning. It's not true or false. It's subjective. And until we can address that, we're living in a really narrow frame of reference. But what if it could mean that plus that and a million other things? So now we start saying, oh, well, so when I speak like this to my team, I mean this. Now I have to find out, what does it mean to you, team? And I have to find out, why does it mean that to you, team? And how can I translate what I mean in a way that you can receive it? That's leadership.
Yeah. So you're opening people up to a more holistic understanding, first and foremost, of their bringing their awareness to where they are emotionally and at the level that they're meeting themselves at this time. And you're also, in so doing, helping them to curiously reach out and digest the meaning others are making at that level as well, which will help us all start to rise together.
Well, you just said the key word, right? You know that my sign-off is stay curious, my friends, stay curious. The key to it is curiosity, but let's be clear. When I say to people, are you curious? They go, oh yeah, I ask questions all the time. That's not curiosity.
Yeah.
And they go, well, yes, it is. And I go, no. If you're asking questions to get validation of what you already believe, that's not curiosity. That's questioning. Curiosity is the willingness to understand at a deeper level. So when you tell me the answer, I want to be curious about the answer. And when you tell me that answer, I want to be curious about that, because I want you to try and breach my bias. I want you to help me to see what I can't see.
Yeah. And
so if I say to you, and I'm the leader, and I say to you, when I said this, what does it mean? Well, it means my job is threatened. I might go, well, that's ridiculous. No. It may be ridiculous in my reality, but it's not ridiculous in yours. Yeah. So now you need to know, well, tell me why it gave you that meaning. Why did you feel like, well, I've had bosses say this to me before. Oh, so there's a history reference. Yes. Yeah, if you put me in that history, I have, because that's been my experience. Well,
Yeah.
do you have any other experiences while working with me that invalidate that? Yes. How come you don't pay attention to those? Oh, could you pay attention to those? Oh, what would happen if you did pay attention to
Yeah.
those? Oh, how might that serve you better and make you more empowered? Oh, how might that give you the strength and the courage to come and speak to me and ask me what I meant?
Yeah.
Oh,
You know, you're dropping down huge gems here because one of the main things that I wanted to ask you about was how do you see the connection, or what have you discovered about the link between real truth telling and organizational health? And the premise of that question is most organizations are not really in the realm of truth telling.
no, I think there's a whole set of levels to that. So, for instance, I'm friends with somebody who was the head of DEI for a global company. I mean, a company everybody who's listening knows the name of, a company that every one of us every day uses, right? Um, came in the whole Doge thing around DEI. She was fired. Global head of of DEI for a company that said DEI really mattered to her, mattered to them, and she's blown away that it doesn't really matter. So companies are not about truth telling; they're about profit.
That's right.
And so there are two things here. One level is as an employee, you've got to know truth is the flavor of the month. That's number one. So just sort of get that.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But as a company, as an owner, as a founder, as a CEO, you have to decide whether you're willing to operate like that, or are you willing to build purpose based in meaning that will move people emotionally? Because people will follow the meaning you give them. So if you give them a meaning that aligns with their purpose subjectively, and your purpose is embedded in your soulful emotional source code, then you get real, not, you don't just get followers, you get fierce loyalty. You get
Yeah.
people who are connected to you, who are part of a community. And that's what my new book is about, creating cultures of belonging. It's like, I don't want to go to work. Who the hell wants to go to work? It's a job, it pays the rent, so I got to go. Okay. But if I get to be part of a community where people care about the same things I care about, where what matters is this, and whether I'm wearing a blue hat or a red hat, this is what really matters. And we can come together on this. I think your politics is stupid, and you think my politics is stupid, but this is what really matters for us. This is what we're coming together in. And in this environment, we are so bonded and connected around this company. Now we have a purpose-driven, meaningful organization that is a community, because let's face it, the bowling club is gone.
Yeah.
The bridge club is gone. Many people, church is gone. Many people go to church online. One of my friends, she's a member of the oldest Baptist church in Memphis. And it was only at the beginning of this year that she went back physically, because her friend said, why come I haven't seen you in church? She goes, I'm at church every Sunday, but it was online.
Oh.
And her friend said, you're missing the community. And she went back and she said to me, I couldn't believe how I dismissed that.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. We have lost this community. That was the biggest damage of COVID, is we lost community. And we're not rushing to get it back because we've gone to convenience, which is our second biggest addiction. Our
Yeah.
biggest addiction is identity. Second one is convenience. So we cling to convenience.
Yeah.
Right? Amazon.
Amazon, I was just going to say, has ruined all of our lives.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's change the name of it. It's 7-Eleven. It's a
Yeah.
convenience store. It's not the cheapest. It's not the best. It's just convenient.
It's the fastest. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So this is the thing. We've got to bring people to a community. So in our work, one of the things we do, I go into companies and I help them to set up these cultures of belonging. And one of the things I say is, you need one day a month minimum where people have to come to work. They have to come, but they don't have to work. When they go, well, why are they there? I go, oh, by the way, and you're paying them. But they've got to come to work, and they've got to be at work for a minimum of 6 hours. And it's so they can have those conversations. They can connect with each other. They can talk about some of the things they're working on, but they can talk about their kids or any other shit.
Yeah.
Because now I want to go to work because now I've got a community there. And so instead of telling me I have to come in 4 days a week or 3 days a week, I want to go in because I want to see Keren. I want to
Yeah.
hang out with Keren. I want to find out how she's doing. I want to find out how her cat is. I want to find out what's going on. Right? This is important. We've got to build community again.
It's so true. First, thank you so much for remembering Waffles. She's right here. She says hello and sends her love. She's still the most beautiful kitty cat in the whole world. But yeah, the team that plays together stays together. And the more we cultivate that, the better off we will be as humans, which actually brings me to another thing that I'm assuming you're talking about heavily. By the way, when does the book drop?
November.
Oh my goodness, and that's when we're going to air. So you are all going to get first copies. I'm super excited for this, but what's the link then? What do we do about AI? Because that's another thing that you've been going down the rabbit hole on very recently.
Yeah, AI is fascinating. So I'm actually working on a new report about AI because I did one which was on transhumanism, as you know, and where we're going with that, and the dangers of AI in that I talked about, which is that I was at a conference speaking about it. I was asked to come and speak about that, and they said, somebody very pro AI was there, and I said, I'm not against AI, but here's the thing: I think every one of us can recognize the damage that the internet has done to our society.
Hmm.
And I'm very pro internet. So you and I are communicating right now over the internet. It's
Obviously.
wonderful. But we can all see that there needed to be guardrails that were never put in.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same with AI. And I said, and if you think the internet has caused problems in our society, times that by 1,000,000
Yeah.
with AI.
You
That's
ain't
going
seen
to be the
nothing yet. I
challenge. And
agree.
we have to have that. So that's number one. In the context of work, this whole thing everybody's freaking out about, AI is going to take your job. So let me be clear about this. AI is good. So we've all lived for the last 20 years, find your niche, shine in a niche. You're going to die in a niche. Niche is going to bury you
Yeah.
because if it's a niche of information, and that information can be stolen by AI like that. So you're dead in the water. You're actually better off as a generalist than a niche person. However, and I've written a lot of pieces on this, and I know you've probably seen a few of them, which is the future of work is human.
Yeah.
It's not AI. The future of work is human. By doing the things that only humans can do, your human skills, your ability to communicate and connect with and bond with other human beings is where your real strengths lie.
Yeah.
Because AI can't do that. All these companies that let go thousands, tens of thousands of people, having to rehire them back. It's like Doge went through everything, and they're realizing, oh shit, AI can't do this. It's people we need. And so
Absolutely.
we've got to go to that. Now then we have to ask the question about of course, the guardrails of where it's going and asking what AI is. And so as Dekai says, he's the guy who was really behind a lot of the information around where AI is going. He's the guy who created Google Translate and many others. We are the parents of AI.
Yeah.
And as I said to him when I was interviewing him, as my friend Larry Wingert said, your kids are your own damn fault. And AI is our kid.
Hmm.
And if AI is shit, it's because we're being shit parents to it. And I
Hmm.
think that's a really important thing for us to realize. But there's this other piece, which is a metaphysical conversation, which is a conversation around consciousness.
Hmm.
Will AI evolve into consciousness? And so I'm writing a special report right now, which will be out in about 3 or 4 weeks, around panpsychism. And panpsychism is addressing what's called the hard problem of consciousness. Does consciousness evolve from the matter, which is the brain, or does consciousness give manifest to matter? And so if that's the case, that consciousness is at cause, then AI is already conscious.
That's a very interesting notion. I'll obviously be waiting with bated breath for this report. I also happen to know that there's another very, very attractive Israeli who would die for it, and that's Yuval Noah Harari, who, as you know, writes very heavily about AI and about consciousness. Oh my God, how amazing would it be if he came on your podcast and y'all had an incredible conversation?
I would love that. If you know him, give him a nudge for me.
Please, I've emailed him several times. He has yet to respond. But
Yeah, me too.
one day, I also wanted to say I really love the two-part interview with Dekai on your podcast. And if it's okay with you, we'll link those below too, because
Oh,
I
of
found
course. Yeah.
that conversation was absolutely scary, but also fascinating. I really, really enjoyed that. And I really enjoy always the breadth of your thinking, the depth of your intellect, and the size of your heart. What's next for you?
What's next for me is, as I said, is the book, Creating Cultures of Belonging. There's also a course by the same name. So both of those will be side by side. They support each other. There's that. I will continue to write for LinkedIn every Tuesday and for my own blog on dovbaron.com every Thursday. That's going to continue. The podcast is going to continue every week. I mean, I'm just so blessed. It was such an honor, and it was great I really loved having you on, and I have so many amazing guests, and the spectrum of them is so awesome. Like I just had Nico Regente, who is a neuroscientist. I have many neuroscientists on, but we were talking about chills rather than pills. So have you ever had the chills? You ever get like the goosebumps?
Yeah.
We're talking about what that is neuroscientifically. And I had discovered him through another neuroscientist who I coach and I guide. And he said, "Oh, you've got to talk to Nico and the reason is because I have this weird phenomena, which is I get what I call them love surges. And it literally is, I'm sitting there talking to you and I suddenly go, oh, it's like a little wobbly. And people are like, what happened to you? And it's a love surge. And and I explained it that way because I look at the neuroscience of it and it affects my entire nervous system.
Yeah.
A minor version of it is you get goosebumps.
Yeah.
Or you get the shudders. He's built a whole neuroscientific theory around this on what's happening. And in that interview, we talk about how the difference between chills in conservatives versus liberals.
Oh, wow. I'm dying to listen to this.
Like,
Please
it's
tell me that
fascinating.
liberals come out on top. Anyway.
Well, it is actually true. Liberals have more chills. But here's what's interesting. The intensity is lower in liberals and higher in conservatives. Now, Nico and I talked about it afterwards, and I suggested to him what it is, and he went, "Oh my God, that's what we didn't get into the report." I go, "This is exactly why," and he's like, "That you're absolutely right. That's what it is. I won't tell you what it is, but that's what it is."
Damn it, Dov.
I'll
Well,
tell you
on
off
that
air.
cliffhanger, I really thank you. I got the very pleasant chills from this beautiful and illuminating conversation, from all of our conversations. Thank you so much for coming on this episode and showing people what teaching mastery really is. For
Well,
those who
thank you,
want to,
Karen.
oh, thank you.
Thank you so
Anytime, you're
much for
always
having
welcome.
me. And you know what? I want to thank you not only for your generosity in having me here and giving me the opportunity to serve your audience, but for all of your support. I mean, your generosity and kindness in my blogs, both on my own site, Dov Baron, or on LinkedIn, for the podcast stuff, for being on. You're an incredibly generous person, and I want people to know this about you because it's important. Listen, I've had a podcast for 16 years before people knew what podcasts were. And people don't have any concept of what it takes to put it together, to record it, to go through the editing, to write, to do the research, the prep, etc. And it's a fucking one-way street. You're putting it out there and you never really know if people are getting anything out of it. And so here's what I'm saying to you. If you listen to this and you got a lot out of it, and by this, when I say this, not necessarily my episode, any of Karen's shows, if you got a lot out of it, I want you to go to Apple or wherever it is you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. It makes an enormous difference to the algorithm.
Yeah.
Please go do it. What's more, if you enjoyed this one, as in with me, write to Keren, tell her what you got out of it. You can write to me. I'm insane. I'll give you my private email, dov@dovbaron.com. Write to me. Tell me what you
It's
got out
true.
of it.
That is his email.
Right. Dov at dovbaron.com. You can email me directly. Tell me what you got out of it. And more importantly, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Because information is worth the hole in the donut. Transformation comes from the application of what it is you learn. Let Keren know this is important. She's putting this together. She puts people in front of you who are fucking legends. Byron Katie, hello. Right? People who are legends. People who you would have to pay thousands of dollars for an hour in front of you, and she puts the work and the effort in to do that. So write a review, rate the show, and subscribe. And what's more, and more importantly, share it with your friends. Don't hoard information so that you can talk about how smart you are. Share it with others. Be generous with it. It's important.
Oh, thank you so much for that. I hope everyone is as moved as I am. I hope everyone is as moved as I am to get Dov's new book, but also to check out all of the links that we are going to leave for you down in the show notes. It is our mission to bring you expertise at this level. It is my joy and my pleasure to share good teaching, Dov, and you are the ultimate. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you again, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And to you, dear listener, remember, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious.
Stay curious.